Hey everybody. It is getting towards Thanksgiving. I almost said Halloween. It's almost getting towards Thanksgiving, and I wanted to bring a video to you today to help you. Well, more like help those in your family who may have some food allergies and give you some ideas on how to cook for them. Um, I have 4 intolerances. They're not necessarily allergies, but what they do is they trigger my immune system to attack my thyroid. So I have to stay away from those things as much as I can. However, people are so used to making dishes a certain way that sometimes they accidentally, put things in that I can't have. So I have intolerances to gluten, to dairy, to eggs, and to corn. Now, 3 of those are on labels, so that's helpful, except for corn, which has like 5,000 different names for it, and it's in things you wouldn't even think of, such as powdered sugar. So I can't even have powdered sugar. I have to find like a special brand. But with today's world, like we have access to Amazon and has like a ton of different things. You can go to specialty food stores, and that's what I do. I actually have a bulk Amish store that I go to along with Kroger to get a lot of my items. And this year I just decided to skip the family Thanksgiving with my extended family and cook a good, nutritious family meal that I can eat, because it's really hard when you have to accommodate one person in your whole entire meal. But for me, I can easily do that because I have all the ingredients. So I want to help you be able to create a few dishes that some people can eat. So we're going to go with a typical Thanksgiving dinner, and I'm going to give you some ideas here. So if your recipe calls for milk, okay, I got my handy cheat sheet. You can use rice milk or almond milk, soy milk. Okay, those are very readily in like every grocery store. Leave out the butter in a lot of recipes or replace it with coconut oil, because that will help. Now, if they have nut allergies, well, that's going to be a huge issue, but just butter, like just leave it out or find a vegan butter. They do make it. Cheese. So I know that cheese is like a staple. A lot of people have mac and cheese, but you totally can, the person can just not eat that dish, or you can make it friendly for them. So another thing you can do is, if you look up, it's a vegan cheese sauce. It actually is made with potatoes and red peppers. And it was just awesome. I think it's made with nutritional yeast as well. Nutritional yeast is another thing that you can add to substitute for butters. When I make my broccoli soup, I use almond milk and I use nutritional yeast, and it tastes very cheesy. You wouldn't even know that I didn't put cheese in it. You can also use a vegan cheese. 1 minute. This is the best vegan cheese that I have found. No, they do not pay me to say this, but they are the best that I found. This cheddar block actually is the best too. I don't really like the mozzarellas, but if you are wanting a cheese as a topper, or I wouldn't use it for mac and cheese. They make even like a cashew cheese that you could use. But there are a lot of vegan cheeses. You just have to look them up, and a lot of times you have all the ingredients that there is. Let's see. Eggs. Eggs are another big one that's in a lot of stuff. So you can actually make flax eggs, and what you do is you take ground flax meal, which I have right here. Bob's Red Mill makes some. And what you do is you add 1 tablespoon into 3 tablespoons of hot water, and you let it sit, and that equals 1 egg. It's really good if you don't want like seeds in a bread, or I'm actually going to use it in my stuffing. It ups your omega-3s, and you wouldn't even know there's not an egg in it, most recipes. Another thing you can do is you can use chia seeds, and I do the same thing. It's 1 tablespoon of chia seeds to 3 tablespoons of hot water, and you let it sit. I'm actually trying some dinner rolls right now with those in it, so I will totally let you guys know how that works. Dinner rolls are kind of tricky. You have to make a special flour and all that stuff, so just get prefab dinner rolls, because they'll just skip it if they have an allergy. Another thing you can do is use this egg replacer. Again, hang on. I should have thought about getting it out a little earlier, but Bob's Red Mill makes an egg replacer, and this I got at my Amish bulk store. I haven't used it yet, so I think what I'm going to do is, this says for all your baking needs, cookies, cakes, muffins, quick breads, brownies, pancakes, and more. This little bag is equivalent to 34 eggs. So it has directions on the back on how to use it, and it is basically just potato starch, tapioca flour, baking soda, and psyllium husk, because psyllium husk will again do the same thing, bulk up and make kind of like a slime, and will help hold things together. So as far as gluten's hard, but if you do some research, maybe ask some gluten-free people, they'll help you come up with different things. But some recipes, when it calls for all-purpose flour, you can easily just substitute out a flour. The best flour I found is either millet flour or buckwheat flour. Buckwheat is not a wheat, it's actually just a little seed. And a lot of times you can find that. It might be expensive at Walmart. I like to get it at the bulk Amish store because I can get like a huge, hang on, I'm going to open this, a huge bag of buckwheat flour. Like this cost me $9 and it's huge. There's also specialty mixes you can make. Here's a flour blend that I use. You have to weigh all your flours, but here's a good blend that you can make and have on hand, and then it's pretty much, you know, almost cup for cup, not quite cup for cup, but close. You also can use almond flour, coconut flour, garbanzo bean flour. Actually, I have some of that too right here. You can make falafels out of that. It tastes really good. And there's a falafel recipe on the back of that. But again, you have to make sure you weigh your flour. There's measurements. I'm pretty sure it's like 500 grams to a cup, but don't quote me on that because I haven't looked at that in a long time. So the other thing that people don't realize is people might have an allergy to corn. And for me, I would wake up really sore after I ate corn. So I try not to eat corn because I don't want to be sore and just feel like poo. So the biggest thing, obviously, like if you're trying to make cookies or something like that that uses powdered sugar, you can't use that. You have to go online. Amazon carries a powdered sugar that has tapioca starch instead, so that's helpful. But cornstarch, eliminate the cornstarch from your pantry. Not only is it full of GMOs, but it's just bad stuff. In place, you can use arrowroot powder, and that's what I use for almost everything. You can use potato starch, and you can use tapioca. And I will grab one of those. Bob's Red Mill is like the best company in the entire world, let me tell you. And I don't get paid to say that either. But here's tapioca flour. That's what I use usually. But I found that like when I am thickening gravies, or like I made a green bean casserole, and so I needed to thicken up the soup a little bit. I find that arrowroot doesn't give as much of a off flavor as some of the other ones. I used to use tapioca a lot when I would make like pies and stuff like that, but I've kind of switched over to arrowroot powder instead. And then another thing that you might not think has corn in it is baking powder. So if you're making cookies and cakes and desserts or something like that that calls for baking powder, like that has corn in it. So I found an easy way to substitute that out, and all the ingredients are at regular stores. So a baking powder, to make your own, it's a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 of cream of tartar to 1 of baking soda. So what I do is I just make a big batch. I'll use like maybe 2 tablespoons, or you can even do like a half a cup to a fourth of a cup if you want to make a super huge batch, but it works the same. And I don't have any reactions to it, so you can just put it in a container like I do and label it baking powder, and it's all good. So I hope this video was helpful. I'm going to show you a couple recipes that I was making because of my Thanksgiving dish. Like I said, I'm eating at home. So instead of cranberry sauce, because cranberry sauce has corn syrup in it, we are doing a kind of like a chutney. And so it's kind of hot, so I'm going to do this kind of fast. But here, this is apples and raisins. I know it's a little bit darker, and cranberries in like this whole bowl had maybe a half a cup of sugar and about three-fourths cup of water. So that is our cranberries for now, for our dinner that day. And for the green bean casserole, you can find a recipe. I wish I could remember where it was, but it actually was a mushroom soup made with cauliflower as the base. And like I said, then I just took my arrowroot powder. I already had frozen some, so I pulled it out, thawed it out, and added my arrowroot powder to thicken it up, and then put my green beans in it. And also, I was looking at, I love Aldi's. They make, hang on, I keep going off camera, I'm sorry. It's all within my reach, but out of camera reach. They make these gluten-free, and this right here has onions, vegetable oil, which is canola and palm, so it shouldn't have corn in it, buckwheat and salt. Now, some people say that canola, you know, is a corn, but for me, it doesn't cause a reaction. So guess what? Green bean casserole is coming my way. And then, let's see, I'm working on the dinner rolls. We are eating meat for Thanksgiving. I have a meat full of freezer from when we were actually doing our raising meat for other people, and I have a turkey in there that I found, so I'm going to eat the turkey. Not very much, and then stuffing. So stuffing is, again, trickier because you've got gluten. And so what I am using is Kroger carries this tapioca loaf. Now, almost all gluten-free things you have to put in the toaster in order for them to taste good because, like, they're super dry. But if you toast it, it's perfectly fine, and I just eat all my sandwiches toasted because I'd rather have a toasted sandwich than no sandwich at all. So this tapioca loaf is really good. They also make a brown rice loaf. It says it is wheat-free, gluten-free, dairy-free, casein-free, which I'm allergic to casein. No sugar. I mean, it looks like a lot of recipes, but it's really not. Recipes. A lot of ingredients, but it's really not. It's also processed in where there's eggs, but unless they have a cross-contamination issue, I mean, if people have cross-contamination issues, you basically can't cook for them anyway because you have all of those things in your house. And if you baked with something and you didn't clean it properly, like, it could still have residue, and then, like, it's crazy. But for people who just have, like, light allergies or sensitivities where, you know, their body just reacts to not even the small amounts are okay, then, you know, you can probably cook for them. But for what I'm going to do with this, since it's really a dry bread anyways, I am going to leave it out on the counter. And then I love stuffing, so I'm going to use poultry seasoning. I'm going to leave out the meat. So I'm going to use poultry seasoning. I'm going to use this tapioca loaf as a bread. I'm going to use flax eggs. I'm going to put in my celery. Everything else that went in the traditional recipe, I'm just going to substitute out ingredients and do that. So I'll be able to have stuffing and turkey and green bean casserole and cranberries. And I'm working on the dinner rolls. And then for pies, I found an awesome crust, which is basically just like almonds and chia seeds, and there's one other ingredient in there, probably water, to make this crust. And it's kind of like a raw pie. You don't really, you can cook that if you want to, but you don't have to. And then it's called a blueberry apple. So what I'm going to do is throw a bunch of apples in my food processor with some frozen blueberries, and then again use my arrowroot powder to thicken that up and pour that in, and that will be the pie that I eat. I do have a pumpkin pie that was already prefab for the rest of my family if they want it. I don't like pumpkins, so unfortunately I can't give you a pumpkin pie recipe. So there you go, substitutions, what we're eating for Thanksgiving. I'm super excited that I get to eat an entire Thanksgiving dinner instead of bringing like salad to mine. So thank you so much for watching. Have a great Thanksgiving, and I hope to see you again in another video. Thanks.